Welcome to Tita Talks. My name is Sonia Tita Puopolo, and I'm your host. It is a great privilege and pleasure to welcome Dr. Lobsang Tenzin Negi. Dr. Negi is a professor of pedagogy, the executive director of the Center for Contemplative Science and Compassion-Based Ethics at Emory University, as well as the founder and spiritual director of the Lobsang Monastery in Atlanta, Georgia. Over the past 2 decades, Dr. Negi has been a pioneer of compassion training programs for adults and children. He was born in Kannur in northern India near Tibet, which is known as the land of apples and gods because of its natural beauty. Dr. Negi is a former monk who began his monastic training at the Institute of Buddhist Dialectics in Dharamsala and continued his education at the Lobsang Monastery in South India, where in 1994 he received the Geshe Larampa degree. In 1999, he completed his Ph.D. at Emory University. And today, we're talking about the healing power of compassion, a self-care tool for you. Welcome to Tita Talks, Dr. Negi. Lobsang.
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to see you, Tita, after so many years.
Thank you for being here. We are currently experiencing the greatest global transformation of our lifetime. This grand transformation permeates the well-being of every aspect of humankind. Wellness and self-care is at the forefront of this paradigm shift. And in 2020, the global pandemic created a seismic shift in life as we know it, and its impact, loss of life, businesses shuttered, polarizing politics, racial injustices, and with a growing mental wellness crisis, the world is experiencing emotional grief and suffering. How can compassion training benefit well-being, in particular at this time, given that the data shows that the mental wellness crisis seems to only be worsening as COVID cases increase?
Thank you, Tita, for this question. It's very true that the world that we are living today is really going through a very difficult time. I think that this, polarizing world that we are in, politically and in many ways, and in particular, the mental health crisis because of, the pandemic, the social distancing, and it's not that the mental health problem is something new. I mean, back in 2018, before or 19, before the pandemic started, the mental health crisis in America has been quite high. That 1 out of 4, the adults in America, at least, experienced some form of mental health problems, whether depression, anxiety, or some form of problems with addiction, the substance abuse, and so forth. But the past 2 years, because of the pandemic and the need to remain socially distanced, I think that has contributed tremendously to the mental health problems. And we human beings are social beings, that we seek connection. And in the absence of that sense of connection, we really suffer. Not only adults, particularly like if you think about the adolescents, when it's a time for them to be exploring and building those kind of connections, when those opportunities are prevented, it obviously creates a huge problem for all of us, but particularly for our young adults or the adolescents. And this is what we are seeing, the huge surge in mental health problems. And this is something that, we will have to address, way beyond the pandemic, this current pandemic duration itself. I think that as a society, we have to address that. And that's why the compassion is very, very relevant. Compassion, when you think about the compassion, not some kind of religious value, but compassion at its core is about meaningful connection, the way you connect with others in a certain, meaningful sense. There's a sense of closeness, there's a sense of tenderness, there's a sense of, endearing feeling. And that's what I think, that as social beings, that when we have a rich sense of social connection, we thrive. And in the absence of that, we suffer. And compassion practice, the compassion, of course, we all have the capacity for compassion, but if we can expand that compassion in the sense of meaningful connection, a warm feeling towards others, then I think that this can be a very helpful tool for us to have, particularly during these difficult times.
Yes. Wow. That's really having authentic relationships, right? That's really meaningful, yes. Authenticity and so forth. Yes. Yes. As the executive director for the Center for Contemplative Science and Compassion-Based Ethics, your focus is on 3 specific programs: cognitively based compassion training, social, emotional, and ethical learning, right? C-learning, and yes. Emory Tibet Science Initiative. Can you elaborate on all 3 programs, yet tell us more specifically, what is the most exciting aspect as the developer of CBCT, the cognitively based compassion training, and what is your research now reflecting since the COVID-19 pandemic and variants? And if you were able to give a forecast of what is on the horizon, then what do you see coming? And how can the CBCT positively impact humankind?
Thank you again for this wonderful question and opportunity to say a little bit about the work we do here at Emory University at our Center for Contemplative Science and Compassion-Based Ethics. It's a mouthful, but we just simply call it Compassion Center at times. So that's right, that we have 3 main programs that we focus, and Emory Tibet Science Initiative, or the ETSI, it's a 6-year kind of program in modern science education, developed particularly for Tibetan monks and nuns. And we're already in the 2nd decade, about 17, 18 years into this work. But this has been one of the kind of long-standing dreams, the visions of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, to bring modern science in Tibetan monastic education. Tibetan monastic education is very, robust, very extensive. It compasses, psychology, the ethics, the contemplations, of course, philosophy, epistemology, and so forth. But for the past 600 years in the monasteries where this science program has been implemented now, science curriculum was not part of the education, but only in 2014, this became an integral part of their monastic training. So now, the science education is part of the main curriculum, and it is implemented in major Tibetan monastic universities in India. Now, the second program, we have C-learning, social, emotional, and ethical learning. And this is something that His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Emory University, have worked really closely. And this academic collaboration with His Holiness and Emory goes back to 1998, over 20 years, when it began with a vision to work together to bring the strength from each tradition to advance the knowledge, our human knowledge about human condition. And His Holiness has written extensively and has had conversations, as you know, that you have been part of, many of those conferences like the known as Mind and Life conference, for example, and many other platforms that His Holiness has emphasized the need for what he calls secular ethics. That is basically a universal way of or universal approach to cultivating basic human values like kindness, compassion, forgiveness, and through that then to inform our behavior, our actions, how we make decisions, how we interact with others, whether it's as an individual, a student, that in relation to their peers, or a business executive, what kind of decision a business executive makes, in terms of their business dealings, or a doctor in the medical setting, that how they respond to the patients and others, nurses and other people around. So C-learning has to do with this social, emotional, and ethical learning, to bring these basic universal values that are foundation of all the major religions, but also, for those who don't have religious affiliations, these basic human values are important, part of their lives, and that the humanists, that highly appreciate. It has to do with, again, the compassion is, a necessary element for our human flourishing. It is as essential as like the fresh air that we need to survive and flourish. Without the compassion, without this meaningful, authentic, meaningful, warm-hearted connection or feeling towards others, we would wither. So that's why that His Holiness the Dalai Lama has worked with us, to encourage, guided us in creating social, emotional, ethical learning curriculum. And we started back in 2015, and now, social, emotional, ethical learning is worldwide, in over 23 countries, in hundreds of different schools, and it's being implemented in many schools. It was just launched fully in 2019, April 2019. So, despite the pandemic, we have been able to, bring this to many communities. And it's really wonderful to see that how the educators are responding to this from around the world. Now, the third program, CBCT, or cognitively based compassion training. And this is, yes, that's right, that I did develop the protocol for this initially as a research protocol, because we wanted to study to see if through compassion training, one could see a difference in terms of how people respond to stressors, psychosocial stressors. As you know, the psychosocial stressors, are a huge kind of part of our problems today. Like that, the stress that feel chronic stress. And it is correlated with many of our modern day problems, whether Alzheimer's or the depression, anxiety, burnout, the loneliness. These are the kind of the major, epidemics, if you will, that public health epidemic, if you will, that we are witnessing today. So we wanted to see if introducing compassion training, the participants can respond to stressors, psychosocial stressors, a little bit differently, so that they will, develop a certain kind of way of buffering from these everyday stressors. And this is what happened. And back in 2005, we started this, and has been, studied with many diverse population, whether it's college students or the medical students, people who are, surviving breast cancer, or the suicide survivors, to veterans and couples, and all kinds of population, really, in the last 15 years or so. And It has been received very widely again in the many different countries. And just last year, with the support from Melanie and Rob and Melanie Walton Foundation, that we, with their support, we launched what's called the Compassion Shift. It's a way to, promote a culture, global culture of compassion, and with this, we are now scaling this compassion program to bring in different fields: healthcare, business and leadership, educators and administrators in schools. For students, we have C-learning, social, emotional, and ethical learning, but for the educators and the administrators, and then as well as for in human services.
More and more people understand now the overall health and well-being benefits of compassion, gratitude, generosity, forgiveness, kindness, and so forth. How can compassion for oneself actually improve the collective we as a community?
Yeah, no, wonderful question. Again, psychologist and the author, Dr. Daniel Goleman, that whose work you are well familiar with. He has written a very kind of thin book with Peter Senge from MIT. It's called Triple Focus, and the new approach to education, in which triple focus has to do with inner focus, other focus, and outer focus. Focus meaning our attention. So bringing attention to our own personal lives, our own feelings, emotions, sensations, our reactions, and so forth. Is a way to have that self-awareness. Thereby, we can regulate and manage our emotions so that we are more resilient, more function better.
Yes.
And self kind of care is an important part. That if we do care for our needs, our emotional issues, struggles, and so forth, in ways that if we manage our emotion, this is part of a self-care. That if we don't pay attention to our emotional needs and our emotional, experiences and like that, as I was saying earlier, that in today's world, like that very fast-paced, very complex world we live today with so many uncertainties and like that, it's very easy for us to emotionally, become very, very distressed. So therefore, paying attention to our emotional life, emotional health is so important. This is part of the self-care. Part of this, in self-care has to do with self-compassion. That has to do with, as human beings, that we are not superhumans. There's no Superman or the woman. We are humans, and our human condition is such that we are, vulnerable to many of the kind of the changes that happen in our lives and around us. And also we have certain limitations as human beings, like that. So therefore, when things go wrong in our lives, when we encounter certain adversity, whether it is a loss or, our own certain personal mistakes or failures and like that, or when we feel that we are not quite doing well as well as we want to, a certain sense of inadequacies and like that, this kind of feel, in these situations, many of the people who are high achievers, who are really who are not just type A, so to say, people who really want to succeed, excel, do well, it's often very difficult when we face such adversities or the failures or the shortcomings in life, and then end up kind of judging ourselves very harshly with self-blame and self-criticism, and in such ways that, we do a huge disservice to ourselves, that so therefore self-compassion has to do with how to put our ups and downs in a broader perspective so that we have a way to accept certain human vulnerability, human condition, in a broader context like that of shared human reality, that we are not alone in making some mistakes now and then, failing in certain tasks. Who does not? Everyone, does, fall short now and then. So that sense of kind of shared, human, experience and the reality can help us put our own ups and downs in perspective so that we are not, kind of tormented, adversely by such adversities in our life. And that's what, that I think I heard you, speak about how tragedies can be such a catalyst for our growth and, the meaning in life. This is precisely, I think, that in the self-compassion, it's not only about self-care, taking care of ourselves. If we don't take care of ourselves, we will not be in the position to, care for others around us. So that's why the two other focus that Dr. Goldman talks about, that has to do with empathy and compassion, that as we are aware of our own, emotional life, our own, and then to manage it in certain ways, that we will have better bandwidth, mental bandwidth or the emotional bandwidth to be there for others and to notice and respond to. And when these challenges, whether ourselves or others, encounter, then we have this outer focus that the systems kind of thinking, putting those events or the incidents in a broader perspective so that we are not narrow in our, kind of reaction to those events, but rather bring this broader perspective, so that we can have a way to address those issues without kind of, judging harshly to ourselves or others.
Yes, completely. Lobsang, what formed your mission and vision to create a compassionate and ethical world for all?
As I mentioned, our work at the Center for Contemplative Science and Compassion-Based Ethics at Emory University, it really is inspired and guided by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So, as you know, that His Holiness the Dalai Lama is one of the world, leaders today, that whose life work has been so single-pointedly focused on the well-being of this world, of all beings, regardless of, what backgrounds we come from, the nationalities, religions, the racial backgrounds, or our, sexual orientations, and so forth and so on. As a human being, he talks about the oneness of humanity, that oneness of humanity. And in that, the compassion is what he has, focused. And we draw this inspiration from His Holiness. And as I mentioned that, for him to promoting compassion is about not to just be becoming a pious person kind of sitting, like a saint, not like that. Compassion is all about how we treat ourselves and others, that if we have a certain sense of, meaningful connection, warm-hearted, tender connection with others as we can expand, we will treat them, we will feel about them differently, we will have that, that warm feeling will, lead us to not only for our own kind of sense of security, emotional well-being, and so forth, but we will relate to and respond to the needs of others differently. What we need today, with this tremendous progress we have made in the material world, we need this kind of spiritual revolution, what His Holiness the Dalai Lama, calls in the Ethics for a New Millennium he wrote in 1999, is precisely about the basic human values. These are the bedrocks of all the religions and, those who have no religion. And this is what inspired us. We actually are really fortunate to have this platform at Emory University, a university whose founding vision was also for education to it's about educating both intellect and character. How about there's this vision, educating both character and intellect. And when His Holiness the Dalai Lama talks about educating the heart and mind, and this shared vision is what brought Emory and His Holiness together, where His Holiness serves as the Presidential Distinguished Professor. We have really, our work at the center has benefited tremendously from this shared vision of Emory and His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Yes, it couldn't be a more important time to have this teachings.
Yes.
We're living in unprecedented times with the global COVID-19 pandemic and variants, including Omicron, social unrest, and environmental catastrophes. Yet with the right wellness and self-care tools, we can reset our lives and forge a new pathway forward. Can you tell us about the healing arts of Tibet, the sand mandala, and how this sacred art form has the power to impact our well-being, specifically how these beautiful sand paintings can teach us different life lessons and inspire us to feel empathy, happiness, joy, and peace?
Another hat that I wear, that I look at Emory as a professor and the director, in your introduction mentioned, serve as the spiritual director for a Buddhist, center here in Atlanta, Georgia. It's called Drepung Losling, Center, or the Drepung Losling Monastery, center, and through the center's programs, we have had the great privilege of bringing a group of monks to travel and offer sacred music and dance, but also create this sacred arts called the mandala sand painting. That you were so kind to support the monks and bring them to Miami. That was quite a few years ago, and the creating the mandala sand paintings has been one of the very important sacred aspect of Tibetan culture, or the Buddhist culture, if you will. It goes back in ancient India, and then certainly was brought in Tibet. But it has certainly a very central significance in the Buddhist tradition, very Buddhist advanced level of practices and like that. But these healing arts are also shared with the larger audiences and populations at times of crisis, at times of pandemics, at times of unrest and so forth, where the healing is needed. So this is how the monks from, for example, Drepung Losling Monastery, in their Mystical Arts of Tibet tours, have been creating in many university campuses, art galleries, museums, and like that for last many years now. Even during last 2 years during the pandemic, even though we could not travel because of the pandemic, but many of the long-term friends of the monastery, Drepung Losling Monastery, which is in South India now, the actual monastery where the monks, they are with about 3,000 monks in residence. the monks have been creating mandala from there using, taking advantage of this technology. We have Zoom to do
Yes.
this online, and then so that people can participate. And the monks have done quite a few of these online mandalas last year and this year. The audiences find this really meaningful. I can tell you, for example, in 2001 and 2002, just right after the
Hours. Yeah.
tragedies, as as you are well,
Yeah.
kind of aware of, and I'm so sorry that you lost your mom in such. But you see that the monks, they offered the mandala, work as a gift to the American people then. So like 3 months after September 11th, like the December 11th, they created this huge mandala at the National Museum of American Indian, just blocks from the ground zero, for 3 weeks, with the meditations and chants, and thousands of people came there to find a moment of kind of peace. And then the 4 months after that, on January 11th, 2022, then they began the mandala at SELFCARE Gallery in Washington, D.C. And I recall that, in winter, like there would be snowing, and many of the buildings are closed. But where they were making mandala, we had also an hour of chanting and meditation each afternoon. We would have like the 300-400 people filled in this kind of around the mandala. And the SELFCARE Gallery had the book for people to journal, and just amazing how people found healing, the emotional healing, then from just having the mandala that the monks create, and the chanting and meditation. So, we really are very fortunate to have this opportunity to share this ancient art, healing artwork, with the audiences around the world.
Our philosophy is that true self-care relies on all 4 pillars of a healthy lifestyle. So that's exercise, nutrition, rest, healing, and mindfulness meditation. When these 4 pillars are in alignment, then we can achieve harmony and equilibrium. This is our formula for health, happiness, and longevity. What is your daily wellness routine, and what self-care tools do you use?
I think this is a wonderful, wonderful, understanding and the formula for well-being that you have. That certainly, I will say that in Tibetan, health sciences.
Yes.
We talk about, how the nutrition or the diet is an important kind of element, that's very important. Secondly, what we call chopa, or the behavior. And behavior comes to how we engage, so whether it's exercise, certainly, but also our, behavior, how we, engage with others. Also attitudinal behavior. It's not just this physical or verbal, the attitudinal, and that's where this the form of mindfulness, compassion, and this. So you have the nutrition or diet, and the exercise, but in the Tibetan healing sciences, the conduct or the behavior, it includes both the physical activities, the exercises, and how we relate to, but also the mental or the emotional, attitudinal conduct and emotional attitudinal. So in that way, where that with being mindful and compassionate, comes into play, that how do we engage, how do we respond to the situations around. That's a very, very important part. That's where that we can see that how we can have a certain degree of regulating our emotions, or to how we respond to the the you know the potential triggers in the environment, and so forth. So that's what where you have the meditation or the mindfulness as a separate. It gets in the Tibetan healing sciences as the second leg, and the third one, of course, is what is called the medicine itself. Actual. So yes, certainly these are very, very important for me. Personally, I think that I would like to be more consistent with the exercise or the walking and like that, and more mindful with my eating habits, and like that certainly I did not make that new year resolution, but I should have done that. But for me, the meditation is very important, and this is something that I do every day. That I have the regular meditation practice, which uh, has various components with the mindfulness, self-compassion, compassion for others, and so forth.
Yes.
Inspiring.
Yeah. Science-based evidence shows that the more wellness and self-care tools and techniques you have, and the more positive daily habits you embrace, then the more you not only learn about yourself, but the better life you will live. And it is about empowering yourself with skills to live a happier and healthier life and a more harmonious life. I want to share an excerpt from my book, Sonia's Ring, 11 Ways to Heal Your Heart. Physical and spiritual well-being is necessary for life and growth. It is what helps to keep us alive, maintains and nourishes love, faith, hope, perseverance, compassion, and kindness. All of this is available for you. So reach out and grab what is yours. Is there any particular message that you would like to make sure that we communicate and share with our worldwide audience?
Thank you. Yeah, I would say just exactly as you said, these inner values, inner tools are, available for everyone. These are skills, that compassion is a skill, kindness is a skill, mindfulness is a skill, the forgiveness is a skill. We all have the innate capacities for this. No one is, without any, degree of compassion, because even the most hard kind of criminal or the seemingly sociopath and like that, there is a spark in their hearts for someone, that in their lives, someone that maybe their own children, or the someone, if they're in the right kind of condition, that they do have the capacity. So we all have innate capacities. For most people have quite abundance actually for their loved ones, for their children, the parents, the friends, and so forth. But in today's world, we would benefit by expanding this. We have to expand the compassion. We have to deepen, and there are very time-tested tools that the traditions, the spiritual traditions have applied for millennia. Today, science is shedding light on those, demonstrating that how, there is a difference, that when someone practice for a few hours, and someone who practice for 10,000 hours, or or someone who practice for who hasn't practiced, and someone who practiced for a few hours, 8 hours, or the 8 weeks, and like that. There are certainly differences that you can see in their physiology, in their brain circuits and like that. So therefore, it's a really wonderful to see how these positive, healthy mindsets we can learn. These are skills that we can cultivate. And that's why His Holiness the Dalai Lama, when I said that, educating the heart and mind, bringing these as teachings, in the curriculum, not as a religious value, because these are not religious values. These are basic human values. We need to stay away from making it as, a religious, because, that it's fine for certain people who resonate with religion and see the connection to compassion. That's wonderful. But since, there are many religions and many people also without religion, we need to find an approach that is universal, that is, secular in the sense, not against religion, but without, relying on a specific religious framework. And this is something that we can learn, we can enhance.
Can you give us an example of like what would be a compassion training? What would be an exercise that like the listeners and the viewers could do if they want to, like a first step to someone who, who's not a practitioner, who understands how to practice meditation or what could be an exercise that they could do as some first steps towards compassion?
Thank you so much for this question. Compassion, cultivating compassion, of course, depends on many factors. It's like you're growing a garden of flowers, that compassion. It has many ingredients. It needs the soil, the seed, the water, the sunlight, and so forth. Many, as more of those conducive conditions you have, those flowers will grow and, the bloom. But, for us as the practitioners to begin with, the learners it has to begin with personal experience, what compassion feels like. That feel like. So in the compassion training that we have, CBCT, Cognitive-Based Compassion Training, 8 modules. The first module is what we call connecting to a moment of nurturance. That connecting to a moment of nurturance. And that is, taking a moment to reflect, that a moment when you witness either receiving kindness, you received a kindness, compassion from someone, or you shared with your friend, someone, or you witness somebody sharing, that just taking a moment ideally when you received, kindness. It can be just somebody giving you a really encouraging smile when you are giving a talk, feeling a little certain about the audience, how they receive and so forth. Just having someone sitting there to giving an encouraging note, or that's when you are having a hard time, at the supermarket or anywhere that the person who is the cashiers does, telling you how you're doing, that's just a nice smile, and like that, like that, just few small moments can be or bigger. If what those exchanges, what those made you feel then, what you feel now when you remember, bringing your attention to what it feels like, you will feel that warmth now, so you can see that how, learning to kind of access those moments of connection, the tenderness, warmth, whether you're receiving or when you shared with your friend or someone, that the other person, how they responded to your sharing. And that's what it's seeing, tasting what it feels like when you receive or share. And in there is what you begin to see the value of kindness. That is the beginning of this journey.
Yes, I love that. So, then not only, so if you can't find that from maybe someone else, then you could also do the same exercise, basically thinking about what was that main moment that you can connect with your own kindness and your own, like, when did you really nurture? So when we talk about self-care, it's really the choices, the connection, like you're talking about, that connection with yourself, the the connection with your heart, the connection with your values, and how you can connect with yourself in that authentic, loving, nurturing, kind way, so that then to sort of recharge yourself to then connect with others. And
Exactly. That's it's inner work. It's really
yes.
kind of having the taste of that moment of kindness, what it feels like. You can ask even like the little children, that when you do this exercise with the children to kindness drawing, that have the children think about, a moment of kindness. What was that like? And then that they can, think about, that I fell down and my, that there's a student who helped me get up, that I did not have a pencil when our teacher asked us to draw something, and then the student next to me, he broke his pencil to half and gave the half to me. And that was the moment of kindness for me. Let's draw that, that what it, that let's help what it feels, what it felt when that happened, how you feel about, that when you remember now. And then they can say that they can feel warm, they can feel good about them, where it feels just a certain warm glow and things like that. These are the ways that you can very, in a kind of visceral, in a felt way, come, to see what compassion, what kindness feels like. That's the, that when you taste, they have the personal experience or taste of that, then you don't need to hear from someone that compassion is good, really, and it's really good. For yourself why compassion is so important. And then from there you can go into, as a social beings, that how much we depend on others' kindness for our food, for everything, that as a, can we survive without others, that like that. So then this is what we call the making compassion, value of compassion visible, that when you see that, then it obviously if something you value, that you would, want to embody it, you would want to see in the world also. That's where that you begin.
In my classes at Emerson, what I would do is part of my curriculum is I created this empathy gym and the kindness gym. So I said, let's practice it the same way you would go to the gym and you would stoop your weights and lift it or go onto the treadmill or something. Let's practice that.
Recommend that to your audience, like if it's for the children, for their children and like that, please do visit clearning.emory.edu. C-learning, especially emotional learning.
Please.
We have, at home, those the playbook for the children, particularly during the COVID situation, where they can do with, parents can work with their children. You can access, these are free, that people can access that from our website. For the adults, if they, they want to learn more about more systematically, this, the CBCD is what, that you can access that the schedule for these programs from our website, compassion.emory.edu, the Center of Compassion, or compassionshift.emory.edu.
Thank you for joining us on Tita Talks. Thank you for discussing the healing power of compassion, a self-care tool for you. And for more information, please go to www.wellnessworldusa.com, www.titatalks.com, and follow us on Instagram at Wellness World USA, at Tita Talks Official, at We Love Tita Talks, and at Sonia Tita Puopolo. And for more information about Dr. Lobsang Tenzin Negi's work, then please see as follows: www.dripin.org, www.compassion.emory.edu, www.clearning.emory.edu, and as you just mentioned, www.compassionshift.emory.edu.